everyone, I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Great to have you with us. Tonight on America Decides, ceasefire agreement. Ukraine says it is ready to accept a 30-day pause in fighting with Russia. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who you just heard, will now take this deal, which in no small measure resumes U.S. intelligence sharing with Kyiv. That's a big deal to the Russians. The big question there, will Moscow accept it? Market uncertainty. The Dow closes down again due to recession fears, among other things, shedding 478 points. The NASDAQ and S&P both ended the day down as well, though not as sharply as the Dow Jones. President Trump's on again, off again tariff wars with our biggest trading partner, Canada, is in part fueling this market anxiety. Ontario's premier said today he will temporarily suspend a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to 3 U.S. states, and, importantly, will meet with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in an attempt to resolve ongoing differences. President Trump earlier today had previously threatened new tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum in response. I want to start tonight with Jennifer Jacobs in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Jennifer staying up late, a local time there. She's been at work all day today. It was a long day of negotiations. Sum up what we learned, Jennifer.
Well, what we learned is that President Trump had put in a demand that the fighting completely stop, and the Ukrainians went along with it. I'm told that President Trump was not part of these discussions today here in Jeddah. He didn't telephone in or join by teleconference, but I'm told that Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz did call him about midway through these negotiations, which lasted nearly 9 hours, and checked in with him. And that's how they proceeded. I'm also told that the Saudi hosts here actually kind of helped make this deal a little bit easier. The facilitating, the way they managed logistics and the hospitality really helped. I was told they only took 2 breaks. Otherwise, it was a lot of intensive negotiations today, Major.
And Jennifer, you'll just have to tell your emailers to wait. You're on live television. We'll deal with those emails that are incoming and making the binging sound momentarily. I want to play for you the sound from Secretary of State Rubio announcing this deal. Let's run that.
We'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes. That they'll say yes to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is number one, above everything else. He wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Jennifer, what is the level of optimism among the president's team there in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, that the Russians will, in fact, take this up and reciprocate positively?
They were hopeful, but there are no guarantees, Major. It's not clear yet, I'm told, whether the Russians will think that diplomacy is in their best interest for gaining what they want to gain, or if they're going to think that fighting is going to be their best way. Marco Rubio said the ball is in their court. All they can do is hope. I do know that they're taking this through multiple channels to the Russians. There's a named delegation both on the Ukrainian side and on the Russian side that are going to sit down and really hash through every detail of this deal. There's multiple diplomatic channels that they're going through, and also Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is going to be going to Moscow, I'm told, and he will meet with President Putin. So that's key. So there will be direct conversations, indirect conversations, and all they told me today is that they're very hopeful that the Russians will accept this.
Jennifer Jacobs joining us after a very long day of reporting in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Now you can get back to your emails. Jennifer, thank you very, very much. Finn Gómez and Alex Isenstadt joins me now here at the desk. Finn, of course, is our CBS News political director. Alex, I'm happy to say, senior political reporter for Axios, also the author of a soon-to-be-released, next week, new book called Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power. Alex and Finn, it's good to have you with us. I want to play for both of you sound from the president just this afternoon on the South Lawn with a bunch of Tesla cars. We'll get to that in a second, talking about this ceasefire. Let's listen.
I think it's a big difference between the last visit you saw at the Oval Office and this. So that's a total ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it. We're going to meet with them later on today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal. But I think the ceasefire is very important. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great. If we can't, we just keep going on and people are going to get killed, lots of people.
Alex, if we can get Russia to do it, sounds like a very large if.
Yeah, it's a big if. And Russia at this point feels like, or it has to feel like it's got a White House that's much more aligned with it than the Biden White House. And so the question is does Russia go along with this? And if they do go along with it, what are their demands? And do those demands, are they okay with Ukrainians? So it feels like there's a long way to go here.
Your book analyzes a lot of then candidate Trump, now President again, Trump's approach to pushing things forward. We had the blow up in the Oval Office. Now we have this, basically the Ukrainians coming right back into the White House fold. What does that tell you about Trump's methodology?
So much of what Trump likes to do is about leverage, and he sees everything in terms of negotiation. One of the interesting things is, and Jennifer mentioned this, is Steve Witkoff is Trump's special envoy. He's going to be going to Russia now. Trump has had this decades-long relationship with Steve Witkoff. This is something I talk about in the book, because in part because he sees Witkoff as a master negotiator. He's a fellow New York real estate guy. So much of what Trump does is about leverage and about how he sees negotiation.
And Witkoff speaks Trump.
Witkoff speaks Trump. He's someone that Trump trusts. You know, Steve Witkoff was actually one of the very few friends who didn't dispatch of Trump after January 6th. So their relationship, their relationship is very close. And so it's notable that he's the one who's going to Russia here.
Finn, I want to play for you something that our colleague Nancy Cordes, in a sit-down interview with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, discussing this other topic today, Canada, back and forth. Will the tariffs go higher? Will they not? Will electricity be done this way or that way? Let's listen to Nancy Cordes and the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick.
That's off too. So we're at 25% steel and aluminum, because that's where we were.
What is really being accomplished with all of these 1 or 2 day tariffs that end up getting yanked?
Well, when you're negotiating with someone and they're not paying attention and they're disagreeing, the president, who's the best deal maker ever to sit in that chair, is going to say, here's my response. And then all of a sudden, shockingly, they respond. So that's what he has to do. He has to do what he thinks is important to get the right deal for America.
And for those in the audience not hovering over every announcement from the president, there was a social media post earlier today. Tariffs on steel and aluminum will go up another 25 to 50%. Then there was this call, and Lutnick got in touch with the Canadians, and now maybe it's all simmered back down. Your take on all this, Finn?
Yeah, and according to the president, it has gone back down. It was going to be at 50%. Now it's gone back down. And there's been, you've seen this seesaw, this tit for tat over social media, and Barb's traded over different interviews. Ed O'Keefe had a great interview with the Premier Ford in Ontario this past week. To me, I spoke to someone close to President Trump, an advisor to him, an outside advisor, just a little while ago, who told me that the tariffs. This is something he truly and genuinely believes in. Yes, it's leverage. Yes, it's a tactic at times, but this is something at heart that he's been talking about for decades, and he truly believes in. And again, he necessarily doesn't have that counterpoint that he did in the first administration, who says maybe this is not a good idea.
Inside the building.
Inside the building,
trying to slow the roll a little
bit.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
Alex, I know what Finn said is true. You know it's true. And yet, the president and Caroline Leavitt today talk about Canada ripping us off.
Yeah.
Under what auspices? Trump negotiated the existing U.S., Canada, Mexico free trade agreement. I was in the Rose Garden when he extolled it as the fairest, best, most equitable trade deal ever.
Right. Well, so much of Trump's campaign was about making promises to bring back the manufacturing industry, and he feels a lot of pressure to come into the White House and follow up and make good on those promises. The issue now is, what does it do to the markets? And Trump is a guy who's always cared about the stock market. He's always talked about the stock market. So is that a countervailing pressure on him that makes him walk back some of this stuff? And also, he's also ingratiated himself with a lot of major donors, which is something that he didn't have during his first term. So now if you have financiers in his ear, is that a countervailing pressure? And they're telling him, hey, you might want to scale some of this stuff back. Right.
And the White House said today, we're in a transition period. How long that transition will be, what effect it will have on people's mutual funds, 401ks, to be determined. Finn Gómez, Alex Isenstadt, thank you. I'm happy to say Alex is sticking around. He'll be back a little bit later in this hour for more on his book, Revenge.